Hello guys, once again it's Matt and today we have another video. Let's thank our members over Landing 11B. Thank you for being a member. Igor, Yuyush, Justin Field, Jaf, Chalar S, Astropub and Silami, all the Foxpad members, thank you, and all the Fishpad members as well. And let's get into it. Make sure to subscribe and join our Discord. So today it's a video that I think I saw a YouTuber do a video like this like a really long while ago, like 2 years ago probably, maybe a little bit less, but yeah, a long while ago. And it is a video on how to reorganize. I mean, it's an idea because I don't say anything in guiding, but as you know, but it's just an idea on how it would be a very cool idea to actually reorganize the rank, especially the rank 6 and 7 and a bit of the 5, in the Russian tech tree. And many people ask me why I was saying that the Su-25 should be, if it's added, should be in the line of the IL-28 over here, because I don't know why, but people tend to have a short memory, I think, because the IL-28 are the only bombers in this line. I mean, the Peshka can be considered a bomber technically, but yeah, in the Ajude maybe, but every other aircraft here, it's an attacker. It's a strike aircraft for CAS or something like that. I really don't know why the IL-28 is here. And yeah, I don't know why the MiG-27s are under the bomber line. And especially, I don't understand why the Su-7s and the Su-17s are under the LA line, which is more of a fighter slash interceptor, something like that, depending on the situation. So I just really don't understand it. I know that they are choosing to be like the manufacturer of it, but that's not a very good pattern anyway, because Polikarpov is here, but then you go for the Lavochkins, and then you change for the Sukhois and go back to Lavochkins and then back to the Sukhois. So that just doesn't make any sense. And here you go from the Polikarpov to the Mikoyan as well. So I don't know. I don't think that helps a lot. But yeah, let's get to it. So I think I will do a print on this and just change it up on how I think it should be. And here we have the idea that I have. I'm going to show some pictures and stuff, but let's get into it. So yeah, I think a lot of things needs to be changed in here. For example, the first thing that I thought it was to move the IL-28, since this is the attacker line. If you go to the game, as you see, IL-10, Su-6, IL-2, this is the CAS line, this is the attacker line, okay? So, and this is the bomber line. These three are fighters, these two are attackers and bombers. So it really doesn't make sense that you see a MiG-27 in the bomber line, but then you see the IL-28 in the attacker line, and then you see the Su-7s and Su-17s, which are frontline bombers more than attackers. Even though they can be used as an attacker, their main primary way to actually do stuff is as a bomber. It's a fast aircraft that can do a lot of damage as a bomber. So it doesn't make sense that it's in the one of the fighter lines. This doesn't make sense that it's in the attacker line, and these doesn't make sense that they're on the bomber line, since they are kind of a attacker line as well, attacker aircraft as well. So what I propose is, obviously I entered some aircraft to fill the holes here, but first of all is to remove the IL-28s from the bomber line to go to the actual bomber line, as you see here. Maybe in a bracket, the IL-28 and the IL-28 Sturmovik, because if not, it would be too many stuff to actually grind in here. And maybe even the IL-28 Sturmovik can be on the attacker line, because it is technically one of the closest things that they had in the 50s as an attacker. To be honest, the Russians didn't have many aircraft like that, so it's kind of a hole here until we get the Su-25, as you see. But yeah, the Sturmovik can be here with the IL-28 together with the Tu-14. Maybe even the Tu-4 going back to Tier 4. I don't know why is here. So yeah, that way you had 2 or 3 aircraft here, 1 aircraft here, before the Su-25. Then you go to the Yak-28 because I think it's still less capable than the other ones. So yeah, and then you pick up everything that it's in here, so the Su-7B, the Su-7BKL, and the Su-17s, M2s and M4s, and you put it on the bomber line. So we are not going to get any more strategic bombers. We're going to end up getting more, not even tactical bombers, but more frontline bombers and stuff like that for every nation, as you see with the Buccaneer, as you see with the Su-17s, as you see with the F-111 that we might get on the future, and the Su-24 and the F-105. So we are getting those kind of bombers instead of strategic ones. So in that manner, put all the Sukhois in here. So for example, put the Su-7B and the BKL in a bracket, being just one aircraft here. If you want to, you can research the other one, as you see on the MiG-21, for example, or the MiG-15s, you know, in the bracket. And in that manner, you will just have two aircraft to research. It will be alright to research, and then you go for the two Su-17s over here. I still think that the Su-17s needs a BR change, maybe in a bracket in the future, together with the M4, but yeah. And then you have the Su-17 M2 on rank 7 and on the last aircraft Su-17 M4, with the ability to improve that with the Su-24M in the future. So it would be kind of a frontline bomber, and you will continue in the manner that it is in the bomber line. So remember, this might be going for tier 5 again, for tier 4 again, but probably not. But still, you would have one aircraft here, then the 214, then one of the IL-28s here, or the two of them, but probably just one with the IL-28 Sturmovik here, the Yak-28, the two Su-7s in a bracket here. You only have to research the first one. Then you go for the Su-17s, and then the Su-24 down there. I think it's a great lineup. It feels like a lot of aircraft here, but if you put it in brackets, it will be fine. 2 or 3 aircraft each tier, like the other ones. 2 or 3, maybe even more. You know, 4, for example, here, 3 here, and here it's even 5. So yeah, it's fine. With the attacker line after the Su-6, as you see, it would be after the Su-6 here. You go for the IL Sturmovik instead of going for the IL-28 normal one, because this is an attacker more than a bomber, because it has the 192 rockets and stuff. So yeah, it would be a very good way to deal with that. After that, obviously the same way as in the A10, we would get a normal Su-25 here. This Su-25 would be 10.0, 9.7, 9.3, something along the lines of the same BRs that we already seen in these other aircraft, as you see. And with that, after that, you will just one aircraft, you know, and after that, you will research the MiG-27M and the MiG-27K, in the future being in a bracket as well if they want to, because the MiG-27s are more attackers than bombers. That's why not in the bomber line, and the Su-17s are more bombers than attackers, so they would be in the bomber line, as I said before, you know. And after that, because this is the attacker line, so even though the MiG-27K would be better than the Su-25 SM3 or the Su-25T, TM, some better version of the Su-25, I think it might be afterwards, because these aircraft are more advanced in ground attack roles, you know? So they would be top tier because of the ground attack BR of them. Even though the Su-25 can be 9.7, 10.0, 9.3, something like that. This Su-25 SM3 can even use R-73s. It can use TV guided stuff. The same goes for the Su-25T or TM. The TM can even use R-73s, R-77s, and R-27s. So I do not like the Su-25T or TM. To be honest, I would like to see the Su-25 SM3 because there's way more numbers of that than of these two. But it's still, yeah, more advanced air to ground role. So this would be for now the top tier attacker aircraft. Obviously, the Su-25 is the evolution of the Sturmovik, basically the idea behind it. If you saw the video on the Su-25, so this would be the idea behind these. Okay, so yeah, I think this would be line. So Sturmovik here, Su-25, all the MiG-27s, and then a last Su-25 SM-3 in my opinion. And then for the Su-7s that are here, that doesn't make any sense that they are here. I think because the way that it works, I mean, it was going to be hard to put the interceptors in the middle of the Mikoyan line, even though they are kind of interceptors, but still, it would be kind of weird. Behind the Yak line, it would be kind of weird as well, since the Yak line for the normal fighters is already over. And then we have the naval fighters here that can be added. So in the future, you can see the MiG-29K in here, the Su-33 in here, stuff like that, to be the naval uh, tech tree line on the top of the line of the Russian tech tree. So continuing with the, it's not exactly an interceptor role, it's just a fighter role. As you see, these are not interceptors, the LA7, the LA9, but yeah, they would be kind of an interceptor because you have the Su-9 here, it's kind of interceptor, the LA200, which is kind of an interceptor. So yeah, it would be a very good, it's not perfect like the bomber and attacker line to be the continuation here, but it would make more sense than these line over here of Su-7s. So first of all, we would see instead of the Su-7B, instead of the BKL, the Su-17 M2 and M4, first of all, in tier 6, you would see the Yak-28P, which is the interceptor variant of the Yak-28B. So it has a very interesting radar. It can be used with the R3Ss. Has cannon, one cannon, 23 millimeter. Very sluggish, but very fast for HBR. Could be 9.0, 9.3. Not 9.0 would be too low, but maybe 9.3, 9.7, you know. So you would have two K8 missiles, which are similar to Sparrow C, Sparrow D missiles, stuff like that, and turns 15 Gs and stuff like that. So yeah, very limited missile, but it would be kind of the first interceptor that we would see for the modern age. After that, in a bracket, we can see the Su-9 and the Su-11. And I know a lot of people think that these aircraft don't have a cannon, but they do have a cannon, and they have a very good radar for the time. It's like 1958, 59, and they have a 30 millimeter, 30 kilometer range, something like that. So the radar is pretty amazing. It is basically a Su-7. They're both basically Su-7s with a delta wing, so they are very quick and they have very limited missiles, you know. Initially, the Su-9 would have just been riding an IR missiles together with a gun pod that it can use on the fuselage, I think. I mean, normally it was not used with that because the PVO didn't need the cannon, but it was tested with that and it could carry the gun pod. I think it was the same gun pod as we normally see, the 23 millimeter, you know. And the Su-11 also can use that, but now with the K8 missile as well, so the same missile as the Yak-28, if I'm not mistaken, the R98. So yeah, and even the R98 can be used. It's an improved version for the Yak-28P. So these can be very, I mean, the Yak-28 can be take, if I'm not mistaken, 4 missiles, being 2 radar and 2 IR together with 1 cannon. So it would be very weird to use, but it is usable. The Su-9 can take 4 missiles as well and 1 gun pod, if I'm not mistaken. And the Su-11, it's or the way around, but I have to check. So yeah, it would be very interesting. Depending on the version that we see, the Su-9 can receive 4 R-55 missiles, which are basically AIM-9Ds, you know, for the Russians. Together with radar-guided missiles as well, R-98s and stuff like that, which even the T variant has limited all-aspect capability. So he was pretty interesting and can carry a gun pod. So yeah, the 23 millimeter. And the Su-11, I think he had only 2 pylons. So I don't think we probably will even see the Su-11. But still, they have 200 meters per second of climb rates, and yeah, they're very quickly, and they would be very cool. Their limit was the weapon system, so they would be 9.3, 9.7 still. They don't have flares or anything like that, but they are very, very cool. They are from the early 60s, so yeah, very interesting aircraft, you know. And after that, we will see in the first of the interceptors of the Tier 7, the Su-15TM, very similar to the J8, has 2 MiG-21 engines, and it is very interesting. It could carry 4 R-60s plus 2 R-98s Ms, I think, which are pretty alright missiles. They are supposed to be comparable to the AIM-7E or something like that. So they're not very good at turning and stuff. They're very old missiles, but still, they are probably capable of carrying. They're probably very capable, the Su-15TM, especially because it could carry the 4 R-60Ms together with 2 radar missiles or IR with limited all aspect, together with gun pods as well. So all these, they're basically the same as the F4. You know, you would carry the gun pod on the fuselage, if I'm not mistaken, or on the pylons. I don't remember exactly, but yeah. And they have 250 rounds, so yeah, pretty alright. You know, the same rounds as in the MiG-21. And then after that, you would receive the MiG-25 PDS or PD, which was one of the latest versions of the MiG-25. PD radar, almost Mach 3 capable with missiles. You know, the missiles would be 60 kilometers, 24 Gs. They are 40 RDs, you know, and with the TDs having a very good sensor that can detect as far away as 100 kilometers, the SR-71. So yeah, it was very capable aircraft. I know in game it would be kind of limited because it doesn't have a cannon. So once you drop your missiles, you will end up having to go back to base. But you can carry the R60s and R60Ms. Has flares and stuff, and it's faster than any other aircraft in the game. In the deck, you can go up to 1,400 kilometers per hour. You can pull 11 Gs, so it is a pretty interesting aircraft, very cool to have it. And yeah, basically this would be the continuation of the interceptor line. Together in here we can see the MiG-31. I did not put early versions of the Su-15 because they are kind of limited in the sense of gun pods and stuff like that, and the early MiG-25 fives as well. The early MiG-25s, they were built in a time that the F4E didn't have the Agile Eagle, it didn't have flares. The only missiles that it carried was the AIM-7E. So yeah, it was starting to get the E2, but it's a problem because the P, for example, the early MiG-25s Ps, you know, they would receive stuff like they would face stuff like that, you know, aircraft without flares, without chaff, without being able to turn very well. So yeah, it's a late 60s aircraft. So yeah, the MiG-25 PDS, I think it's the only variant. They can add as an event vehicle the P variant later. They can add the RBT, for example, as an event vehicle, because I think a bomber version of the MiG-25 would be kind of weird to see in game as well, because it doesn't have any guns or missiles, to be honest. It would only carry bombs. So it is problematic to say the least, you know. So yeah, but this is my idea behind a rework on the Soviet line that it really needs. As you see, it is kind of weird, all over the place. Basically, bombers under a fighter line, bombers under a CAS line, and then you have attackers under like, the bomber line. So it doesn't make any sense. As in the U.S., for example, you have everything is perfect. You know, the attackers, the bombers, the naval fighters, they're more heavy, large fighters here, the more light ones here. So it just makes sense, you know. It just makes sense. Germany has another version of this with the, for example, in top tier, with the communist part of fighters here, the NATO part of fighters here. Then we have kind of heavy fighters, attackers here, and then we have another type of attackers here. So it is just, yeah, and the bombers and stuff. So it just makes sense, you know. Every line in here makes sense. To be honest, most of the lines are pretty alright because they don't have a lot of fighters and stuff, you know. But the Soviet line is probably the second largest to the United States, and going to be one of the main ones for all eternity of the game. And it is just, it doesn't make sense. This really doesn't make sense. It's all over the place, and we really need a change on here to make sense and for the future, because you know, come on, they're not going to add the interceptors of the Russians. They're going to just add the fighters for all eternity. No interceptors. So they're going to leave a blank um, space on the interceptors of the Soviets. Doesn't make sense, you know. And the bombers and attackers all over the place as well. So yeah, but basically this is it. I hope you enjoyed, and I see you guys on the next one. So subscribe and bye, guys. See ya.